Hey there and welcome. Are you a woman who is unapologetically ambitious, but you're also deeply focused on honoring God, loving your family well, and pursuing meaningful work? Well, you've come to the right place. My name is Dana Byers, and you and I are going to be fast friends. Let's get started. Before we get started today, I want to take just a moment to share with you a recent 5-star review that another life coach left about my podcast. Turtle1973 said, Dana brings a solid, practical approach to handling the thoughts that impact our actions and results. I use the thought model with my own clients, and I'm glad to hear someone else in the Christian space bringing this awareness to others. Give this podcast a listen and implement Dana's teachings. Well, thank you so much for taking a moment to leave me that review. Listen, friend, if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, and if any of the episodes have been helpful to you, please take a moment and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. That is going to help so many more women have access to this free content. Well, hello there, and welcome back to Been There, Learned That. I am Dana Byers. I am an empathetic accountability coach, and today we are going to dive into a topic that I hope is going to lovingly challenge the way you think about freedom and boundaries. Yes, boundaries. While it's easy to dream maybe about a life without limits, well, today I want to explore how setting clear boundaries in different areas of your life can actually lead to more freedom, a greater sense of fulfillment, and an increased capacity to be generous. I know it might sound counterintuitive, but knowing your limits can help you live a more purposeful life. I'm excited to share some insights that I think are going to help you identify your own sense of enough. So let's get started. Well, I want to start today with a coaching question, and here it is. What are your limits? What are your limits? Take a moment to think about my question. You see, in our culture, I think we're often encouraged to push beyond our limits, to do more, to achieve more, to have more, to earn more. We're bombarded with messages that tell us that life is all about abundance, having more, and really abundance is wonderful in many ways. In fact, it's a value of mine, but I think a life without boundaries can lead to burnout, to stress, and even dissatisfaction. And actually, I don't think a life without boundaries can lead to that. I know from my own personal experience, you could not convince me otherwise, to be quite frank with you, that abundance is great, but a life without boundaries does lead to burnout. It does lead to stress, and it can give you a really strong sense of dissatisfaction and even impact your relationship with God. So when we take a step back, we can realize that our limits are not restrictions, but rather they are guideposts. They are parameters that lead us towards a healthier, more fulfilling life. And I want you to look around, think about your coworkers, maybe your friends or family, and you'll notice that they all have their own limits. Some of their limits are spoken aloud, while others are silently honored. And these limits can vary in scope, but they're important because they help us manage our lives in a way that is sustainable and meaningful. I've heard and observed our limits expressed in a variety of ways recently. Here are some ways people have let us know what their limits are. I heard someone say, you know what? I don't worry about my weight unless it passes a specific number of pounds. That was her limit. Another woman said, I don't have any more than 2 glasses of wine ever. I heard a friend say, we love to travel, but now we've made the limit where we take one long family trip every year instead of taking a few short weekends away. So that's just a parameter they put in place through experience. And another limit I heard someone say recently is that the ideal house for us would cost about X amount of money so that we can afford the property taxes that accompany it. This was a couple who really understood what they were looking for, the parameters, kind of their upper limit, if you will, of what they would afford for a house, because they knew all the behind the scenes costs that were going to be involved in it. So each of these limits reflects their personal understanding of what's right for them. And they're really setting boundaries, but they aren't about deprivation. They're about maintaining balance and keeping their lives manageable. So we can all identify our limits by listening to our bodies, by looking for themes or trends in our behaviors and habits, by inviting, a coach or a counselor or a mentor to speak into our life, and of course, by asking God to reveal to us, hey, God, what is an upper level here? What is a limit that we don't want to cross? You could also ask, a trusted coworker, maybe a friend or a family member, to point out to you limits that they've noticed you might have put in your life, intentionally or unintentionally, kind of these upper levels that you've set where you said, I'm really not going to go beyond this. Maybe it's that you don't stay out past 11 p.m. at night, or you make sure that you're in bed at a certain time, or you get up at a certain time every day. I want you to start thinking about how there are limits that you're already operating within, and that limits can be a pathway to freedom. I think it can be a little bit romantic at times to imagine a life without limits. But when we think about creating an environment where true freedom can flourish, it's really an incredible thought. Think about it. When you know your boundaries, you have the freedom to say no to excess and to say yes to the things that truly matter to you, the things that you really value. Because limits give us clarity, and clarity leads us to a sense of purpose and peace. We don't have to lose sleep at night, to lose our peace, wondering if we made the wrong decision. One of my most cherished conversations in the past year took place around our family's dining table. We had hosted a group of business executives for dinner, and my husband posed a really intriguing question. He asked everyone around the table, if you could solve just one world problem, which one would it be and why? Well, it was fascinating to listen because the answers were as varied as the guests themselves. We heard people responding with things like, I would love to tackle homelessness, global warming, racism, food insecurity, and gender-based violence. And as the question continued, one of our guests, who had been quiet for a while, he finally spoke up, and here's what he said. He essentially said, I feel that if everyone identified what their appropriate level of enoughness is in life, we could tackle many of these issues that we're discussing right now. His insight really struck me in a powerful way. I believe our guest was absolutely right. While the world's problems are very complex and multifaceted, our collective understanding of what enough is in our lives could shift how we approach not only our personal lives, our time, our money, our energy, our values, but also global challenges. And I'm sharing this story with you to show you just how important the idea of kind of this upper limit, creating this boundary in our life is really going to help us in so many ways, not just in our personal lives, but it can inspire other people, and it can lead us towards solving issues that are beyond even our own personal lives. So by knowing our limits, or our enough, if you will, we can free ourselves from the constant pressure to achieve more and instead to focus on what truly matters, whether that's personal health, relationships, or giving back to others. So let's take this profound insight from my dinner guest and bring it closer to home. What does enough look like for you? Have you ever paused to think about the limits you have set or you could set in your life to create more peace and freedom and purpose? Well, here's a few examples of limits that you might consider setting for yourself. These are things I've talked to my clients about, and so I'm going to share them with you to kind of get those wheels turning in your brain. I want to ask you, how much time is enough for you to spend watching TV each day of the week? If entertainment is eating into your productivity or rest, it might be time to set a boundary. What's the upper limit of your monthly household spending? Can you simplify your budget so that you have more to save, more money to invest or donate to be more generous? Knowing your financial boundaries can reduce stress and actually increase your sense of control over your day-to-day life. How many cups of coffee are enough for you each day? You might be laughing at this question, but we can apply this upper limit question to any area of our lives. And when I ask you this one, it's because we all love a good caffeine boost. Well, at least I do. I won't speak for you. But too much can definitely lead to jitters and burnout and impact our capacity to sleep and rest. What's the appropriate number of pairs of shoes for you to own? Setting limits on material possessions can prevent clutter and encourage mindful consumption in your home. Also, side note, this is completely an opinion here, but from my experience, having fewer pairs of shoes and fewer outfits makes laundry and packing to travel just so much easier for me. If I limit the number of clothes I own, I have to stay on a consistent pattern of when I do laundry. I can't get behind, but I also don't have giant piles of laundry sitting around my home. Also, when I pack, I don't have a lot of options, and that makes it very easy for me to navigate that, and it isn't as stressful for me as it used to be. One more question on setting upper limits. How many days will you work each month? Now, some of you are hearing that and going, Dana, I don't have any control over that. And I just want to lovingly say, frankly, you do. How many days will you work each month? Boundaries in your work life can help you prevent burnout and allow you to enjoy your time off more fully, so that when you're actually off work, you can actually be present, doing the things and being with the people you want to be with. So only you can determine what's right for you. The goal here isn't to become rigid or legalistic. That's not at all what I'm encouraging you to do, but rather I want to stir up your thoughts about where excess might be creeping into your life simply because you don't have an upper limit there. And once you identify those areas, you can begin to simplify and create space for what truly matters. And like I said, setting limits isn't about deprivation. It's important to remember that I'm not asking you to deprive yourself, and I don't actually think that's what God is telling us to do all the time. He doesn't want to suck the joy out of our lives, but the Holy Spirit might be inviting you to consider a place to put an upper limit in your life. So when you know your limits, you're going to find that you have more energy, more focus, and more peace. You're going to be able to enjoy life more fully because you're no longer weighed down by excess that you may have intentionally or unintentionally invited into your life. Whenever we set an upper limit, there's less of a need or less of a push to strive to add more to what we already have. So here's something a little bit sneaky for you to consider. What's stressful for one person might actually be energizing for another. I know you've heard me say this if you've read any of my emails or listened to any of my other episodes, but I want to point that out, particularly with this topic about creating upper limits, because you might not be stressed by the number of pairs of shoes you have. Other people might say, I just need a pair of running shoes, a pair of dress shoes and sandals, and that's all that I can handle. And we have no judgment for wherever you might fall on that shoe ownership spectrum, okay? But as you reflect on your own limits, keep in mind that everyone's enough looks different. We don't have to project onto others what we think enough should be for them. For example, your coworker's limit for their work hours might be different from yours, and that's completely okay. Your friend might thrive on a busy social calendar, but you might need more downtime to be able to be present during limited social settings. So in the Dana Byers coaching community, we talk a lot about anabolic and catabolic energy. If you haven't heard about this before, catabolic energy is something that drains you. It draws energy from your life. But anabolic energy is something that's healing and replenishing. It actually injects you with energy. It fuels you. So the goal here is to focus on activities and behaviors that generate that fueling anabolic energy for you and to reduce the catabolic unnecessary stressors in your life. Well, I hope this conversation about upper limits has sparked something in you. Remember, the limits aren't about restricting yourself. They're about creating space for freedom, for joy and purpose in your life. Invite God into these conversations. Invite God into answering this question I asked you earlier about what are your limits, or what limits might you consider creating in your life? So as you go about your week, take some time to reflect on where you can set some healthy limits and boundaries to reduce your stress and invite more peace into your days. I am praying that you would feel empowered to identify your own sense of enough to live with greater clarity and intention. Well, until next time, keep showing up for yourself with grace and purpose. You are worth it. Are you a Christian working woman who is looking to boost your confidence and transform your life? Well, I have got just the thing for you. My online course, the 10-hour Confidence Transformation, is available now. This course is designed to fit into your busy schedule and provide you with actionable strategies to increase your confidence. Plus, with your purchase, you will get access to a private monthly group coaching call where we can connect and grow together. Get all of the details right now at danabuyerscoaching.com.